Hello and welcome to Insight. I'm Natasha Chabahar. 7 months after taking over as Afghanistan president, Ashraf Ghani is on his first state visit to India. He's already visited China and Pakistan earlier. Ashraf Ghani emerged victorious in the Afghanistan election after a 6-month-long and contentious election process. His assuming office, his visits to Pakistan and China are being seen by many analysts as a policy shift, focusing on Islamabad at the cost of New Delhi. Although this is Ghani's first visit to India after he became Afghan president 7 months ago, he has already met PM Modi during the SAARC summit in Kathmandu last November. This time around, he'll be under scrutiny for what he says about how he visualizes India-Afghanistan relations and equally what questions he chooses to sidestep. Insight today discusses the significance of Afghanistan president's visit, growing influence of Pakistan in Afghanistan and the impact it could have in an already volatile region. So in the first segment, let's try and understand why this visit is important. And joining me for more on this today, very esteemed guest with me, Dean of Jindal School of International Affairs, Sreeram Chaulia. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us here. He thinks differently. He has a very segmented approach towards India. You just heard him, Ambassador Kaju. Overall, what's your assessment of this visit and how important this is going to be from India's perspective?
Finally, he has come. So that's good news. You know, this is the most vital relationship. I mean, if you think in terms of geostrategy, geopolitics, just as we say Japan, for example, has become so central for us in East Asia. I mean, Afghanistan is the bridge between us and two crucial regions, Central Asia as well as the Middle East, or what we call West Asia. So it's sitting right there. And of course, it's also in the past been a source of Islamic extremism. So for all these reasons, it's too crucial for us. So therefore, I think we must welcome President Ghani. And I do hope Mr. Modi will be able to, show some direction as to what we can do for them. Because Mr. Modi is famous for saying, in the past we've always said, we give a laundry list of what India wants. It says from now, my leadership, my foreign policy is to show what India can do for others. So I think this is the kind of crucial moment. Recently I met...
but how would you really distinguish President Karzai's approach towards India and now Ashraf Ghani's approach towards India? Let's not forget, President Karzai called India as a friend and Pakistan as a twin brother. On the contrary, we are seeing how Ashraf Ghani is trying his best. There's also a possibility of, the reconciliation talks with Taliban, and they need Pakistan on their side, also the role of Iran and China. We'll discuss, on this particularly in the later segment. But how important is India, overall? Is India just an international donor for Afghanistan, or India can play a strategic role in Afghanistan?
Well, Ayman Faizi, who was President Karzai's spokesman, has just written saying that President Ghani is pursuing a policy of appeasement of Pakistan and neglect of India. I hope that's not the case, and maybe it's too early to judge this, because at one level, both in security terms and economic terms, India is going to be crucial, and Dr. Ghani is an economist by training. So he should know that, how do you reconstruct a war-ravaged society? It has to come from a relatively high-capacity neighboring country, which has got a tradition of English, which has got tradition of training institutions, which has got, all the human capacity building storehouse. So that's India. That cannot be Pakistan. And of course, our ambassador there, Mr. Amar Sinha, has often reminded obliquely that, whatever President Ghani chooses, India is not far away, because India is deeply embedded in the hearts of the Afghan people.
Okay, so he's heading a very precarious government, national unity government, where CEO is Abdullah, and we know it's sort of understanding and what really happened. There's a sort of election process, long 6 months into it, and now the economy is in shambles. US elections in 2016, complete drawing down of troops by the end of 2016. What will really happen? We have seen the cadets going to Pakistan for training, Pakistan and Afghanistan coming closer, no precondition for reconciliation talks with Taliban. All these things should upset India at this stage?
No, on one hand, there's a talk about rapprochement with Pakistan, but on the other hand, the attacks, the so-called fighting season have started. And if you see, there was one attack in Jalalabad, which is very close to the Pakistan border. And there is a handiwork supposedly of Islamic State there. So clearly, I think Pakistan remains a source of trouble for that country. And maybe President Ghani will realize it the way Karzai did the hard way.
And there's also two opinions on that. And this is
been.
not happening in the case of President Ashraf Ghani's case, who is actually not calling them regular Pakistani-backed militants.
Well, so the proof of the pudding is in eating it, you know. As this fighting season erupts, and without the backing of the Western, full-fledged backing of the Western ISAF forces, now, you know, there's tremendous pressure on the Afghan National Army. So a few of cadets may go across for training, but the point is that, you know, the source of the trouble remains there. I was just speaking to senior officials of the Afghan government. They were saying, you know, no matter what President Ghani thinks, the point is, we don't have a Taliban problem. We have a Pakistan problem.
No, right. So Ashraf Ghani's turnaround with Pakistan is probably the most dramatic shift in Kabul's foreign policy. From the moment he assumed office, he has shunned making any comments on Pakistan's inter-services intelligence support to the Taliban and Lashkar-e-Taiba insurgents in the way Mr. Karzai had, and has pursued closer ties on the military front. He went to Pakistan in November, visiting the army general headquarters in Rawalpindi. There's also a strong desire to restart talks with the Taliban. In this segment, let's try and understand the shift in Kabul's foreign policy. A visible shift in Kabul's foreign policy, Professor Chaulia, and the way he's trying to mend ways with Pakistan.
Well, to be charitable, I think he is looking at geography. He's looking at the fact that no matter whether Karzai was close to us, or no matter what the approach is from Kabul towards India, the menace comes from Pakistan. So given that Afghanistan is conventionally weaker, doesn't have the same ability to do a kind of a tit-for-tat on Pakistan, although the Pakistanis sometimes claim that, his only option is to be able to talk to them and bring them to their senses. And I think he's trying his level best to try and find some reasonable ally on the other side. The fact he met the army chief in Pakistan sends a signal that he hopes that they can rein in the terrorism. But you know, the experience of the past has been that the Pakistanis don't let go of their proxies so easily. So I read when he says a proxy battleground, it's not so much that India is somehow, because we have no militants there, our contribution always positive.
Right.
The Pakistani one is negative. So he is thinking about, you know, anyway India will be with us, but Pakistan is the one he has got to somehow work around with. So probably that's his diagnosis.
But as we know about the strategic partnership agreement, the first strategic partnership agreement with India in 2011, and which was in fact supported across the board in Afghan parliament at the time of ratification. What's the meaning of that strategic partnership agreement for India? And at this stage, when we're talking about the Pakistan angle, and also if you can comment on China and Iran playing a strong role, let's not forget about the China's big investment, a sort of economic miracle for Pakistan, $46 billion.
Yeah, in fact, we are now, in fact, on this visit, Prime Minister Modi and President Ghani are going to be talking about how we can enhance the infrastructure building and the corridors from Chabahar port in Iran, which we have constructed as our own asset there, in opposition to the Chinese port of Gwadar, which is just across the border. It's close by, both in the Gulf of Oman. And basically, we hope to build this corridor where our maritime commerce from Mumbai goes up to Chabahar, and from there by road, we are also helping to build a road across Iranian territory to the Afghan border. And we hope eventually it will be a north-south kind of corridor for us, all the way up to Tajikistan, where we already have our only overseas military base. So, and beyond is Russia. So it has energy. In fact, President Ghani, I think we should be talking to him. Our strategic role is also economic, in the sense that eventually for Afghanistan to rebuild and to have indigenous sources of growth, because right now it's all donor supported, even now, although it's dwindling with the withdrawal of military. The economic becomes crucial, right? And here, if President Ghani and Dr. Abdullah have both spoken about Afghanistan being some kind of like a transit point for energy-hungry South Asia, which is growing fast, and energy-rich Central Asia, which has got so much gas and oil, but few customers in the current because of the decline in commodity prices. So for all these reasons, it makes sense to envisage India's role as building this connectivity. For Prime Minister Modi, connectivity diplomacy is the #1 issue. So I hope that we push through with the commercial aspects. Our land route direct access to Afghanistan has been stymied by the Pakistanis because the motor vehicle agreements had not happened. But symbolically, I think Dr. Ghani,
as an economist, motor vehicles agreement.
As an economist, Dr. Ghani should say that at least symbolically, we are in favor of this, although the Pakistanis are blocking our way. So the indirect way is through sea, and at least that's how we are going to keep our leverage there.
Okay, China playing a big role now in South Asia and Central Asia. That technically means declining influence of America here now, and the sort of relations US and Pakistan shares, in terms of, donor, the way, the sort of international aid coming in from US for Pakistan, which is in fact now what China is going to invest is double the amount. This is going to be very huge for Pakistan and Afghanistan both.
Yeah, I think even for President Ghani, he is looking at China as a major source of investment. More than I think China being a broker between different Taliban factions and with the state. I don't think the Chinese have the gravitas in Afghanistan historically to be able to play that role. It's less the diplomacy. I think it's more because this one belt, one road that President Xi Jinping has unveiled, it's like a big thing. I was in China just a few days ago, and all they're talking about is this,
right.
State media, everything. This is like the #1 issue for the country. And all they're saying is our investment Pakistan, our investment Afghanistan is also eventually going to give us a, trade route to easier, quicker and cheaper trade route to Europe. And I think for them, as they want to expand, it's the checkbook diplomacy. They have so much wealth to dispense right now in terms of surplus. So President Ghani, I think, is eyeing that because he needs investment. But remember, tomorrow he's also going to meet our chambers of commerce here in Delhi. So I think we also can mobilize capital, although there is some risk factor. Some of our business entities, including Jindal Group, have invested in Hajigak mines in Afghanistan in the past, and eventually our private sector will also have to bring in more pieces to the table.
Right. Yes. Final comments from you, Professor Chaulia here. India's role in Afghanistan and how far how do you see India fitting in?
Ashraf Ghani is here to stay. I think this unity government will pull through, despite the skeptics and the doomsayers. So we've got to learn to work with him, no matter what his preferences are. The skill in our diplomacy and in our strategic vision should be to able to change and modify a state's preferences to favor our interests.
Right.
So that's a big challenge for us, and we've got to use.
I'll come to you.
We've got to use commerce. And we've got to use also offer more military know-how and technology. We have transferred some helicopters recently.
Thank you very much, Professor Chaulia, for joining us in this program. And that's all we have for you in another edition of Insight. Thank you very much for watching. Namaskar.